Well, welcome everyone. This meeting will be recorded and posted to the OATS website and YouTube channel for the benefit of those who can't attend live today. And I just want to welcome you to another Organic Advisor Call Series episode. I'm your facilitator, Nate Powell-Palm, and I'm the training specialist with the Organic Agronomy Training Service. This is our 8th episode. Please visit the OATS website to see the previous episodes in the list of topics. If you haven't done so already, I would really recommend everyone sign up for the newly launched Organic Advisor listserv, where we're going to be having some great conversations right in your inbox on all things related to advising organic grain farmers. And the link to sign up is going to be in the chat for everyone. Please stick around after we're done today for a few exciting announcements. And with that, I am going to introduce our guest for today. Our guest for today is Matt Levitt. Matt is an agronomist with Albert Lea Seed House and has been working with them for about 10 years. And Matt has a master's from the University of Minnesota, working with no-till organic grain production. With that, I would like to kick the conversation off, Matt, with just a little bit of an intro from you. If you could tell us about yourself and how your journey into organics came to be.
Yeah, thanks, Nate, and good morning, everybody. Please forgive me. I am dropping my kids off at school, so I will be a disembodied voice for most of the call today. But really happy to be a part of this. In full disclosure, I am very excited to see all of the work that has been happening with OATS over the past 2 years. I sit on the National Steering Committee in addition to my work with Albert Lea Seed. So obviously very invested in this organization and all it can provide for service providers working with organic farmers. And yeah, really happy to see all the great work that Nate and Mallory and other folks at OATS have done. But my path to working with organic farmers has kind of been a little bit tangential, I would say. So I didn't grow up on a farm. I got into agriculture and working with farmers kind of via food, and being very interested in high school and early college about origin of food and how food is produced across the landscape. And that led me to getting a degree in environmental sciences from my undergrad, and worked at some smaller diversified vegetable farms, and really just fell in love with agriculture from that point, and really focusing on the abundance of our earth and what it can provide, and how much our current food system does not prioritize both the people and the environment on the landscape. So through that, I did my master's work at University of Minnesota, kind of with organic grain farming, and have been working in the industry ever since. And you can tell my daughter is also chiming in too. She is very upset about the state of industrial agriculture as well.
Well, excellent. So you work with Albert Lea as an agronomist. Could you tell us a little bit about Albert Lea and its role in the organic seed space?
Yeah, so that was one of the primary drivers for me to work with Albert Lea Seed in the first place, when I've been working for them about since I graduated from grad school. And I definitely did not, start off with the intention to work in the seed industry, but there are very few avenues for someone with my interests and skill set to work. So with such a broad range of certified organic farmers in general, and Albert Lea Seed has really differentiated themselves in the ag seed landscape by focusing exclusively on certified organic grain farmers. And initially it was in the upper Midwest, and now it's really expanded to nationwide. So the seed house grew their first certified organic oat crop in 1999, even before the full implementation of the National Organic Program. And it was fairly small. I think that I wasn't working for the company at that time, but they sold very little organic seed. But as the program has grown and acres have expanded, our certified organic seed offerings have grown right along with that, and now it comprises about a half of our total business, and which might end up being more, as you know, some of you may be aware or may not, but Albert Lee Seed really recently signed a finalized purchase agreement to acquire Blue River Organic Seed, which is another regionally and nationally based organic seed company. We've had a very good working relationship with Blue River for as long as they've been in existence. We've brought on the vast majority of their employees and their sales force, so very complementary integration between our two seed companies, and we really hope that this will be a win for organic farmers and will expand genetic offerings and expand access, quite frankly, for organic seed to organic grain farmers. So really pleased about that development. That's going to be kind of a phased integration over the next 2 years. So I don't necessarily have any hard numbers to back this up, but I feel like this is going to position us to be the largest supplier of organic farm seed in the U.S. If not by volume, then certainly by diversity and scope.
And that is why we are stoked to be talking to you today. So this is really exciting developments for Albert Lee, but also for the industry to see these companies investing and expanding the offerings available for organic farmers. So Matt, I want to talk a little bit more about organic seed, but specifically about the relationship with the National Organic Standards rule and the law. So in the section 205, 204 of the National Organic Standards, it's a pretty succinct, clear requirement that a producer, an organic producer, must use organically grown seeds, annual seedlings, or planting stock. There's some carve-outs, however, though, as the industry has been growing, around how if you don't have commercially available seed, you could do a seed search with your certifier and prove to your certifier that there isn't any commercially available seed of the type, quality, and quantity that you're looking for, and then use non-GMO, non-treated conventional seed. Now, I was wondering, when we think about how organic farmers go about sourcing their seeds, how have you seen the quality of the genetics? I know a lot of farmers that I've worked with as an inspector or as a consultant have expressed concern that they have varieties that they really like and they trust on the conventional side, non-GMO, non-treated, and I feel like that's usually a barrier to entry for them, feeling like they can confidently go forward and take on and explore what organic offerings are out there. So how do you think about it, and how do you explain the current state of organic genetics to farmers?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I don't obviously want this to be a commercial for Albert Lee Seed, but I think we do, at least from our position in the organic seed world, do have kind of a unique perspective on this. But yeah, you're absolutely right. The regulations were written to give, at a time when the organic seed supply was pretty limited, in terms of genetic offerings and also in terms of total species diversity too. And I think it was fairly true at the beginning of the program. So we're talking, late 90s, early 2000s, where, organic seed in terms of performance probably wasn't at the level of, a conventional genetics in terms of, the main crops, corn and soybeans specifically. But that's really not the case anymore. For a company like ours, I should emphasize that we are still independent and family owned and operated. And, as of 2 years ago, move to employee ownership as well. So that independent ownership means that we are able to access genetics from, large and small genetic programs. So, we've sourced from, large multinational seed companies. So essentially we're sourcing genetics that would end up in any, conventional corn company's bag. And, we go through a whole process of screening hybrids from the conventional pipeline that might be a decent fit for organic, because obviously organic farmers have a whole set of different, characteristics and parameters that, there's some overlap with what conventional folks are looking for as well, yield, standability, disease resistance, things like that. But, there's specific traits like early growth and emergence, which may not matter as much for conventional folks, but is incredibly important for organic farmers. Canopy closure, plant height, leaf architecture, all those things. We do go through kind of an internal screening process to make sure that those conventional lines are going to be a good fit with organic farmers. But yeah, I mean, in terms of just raw performance and yield, I mean, we do all of our selection just like any other larger corn company would. So under treated management, across multiple locations around the United States. And that's mainly to get a sense of, what the yield ceiling is of a lot of these hybrids and make sure that they are performing at a consistent level. So yeah, I mean, very much there is, really, I would say a lot of our certified organic hybrids are as competitive, if not, more competitive than any hybrid you'd find in a traded bag or a, conventional seed offering. Definitely something that we do see, with larger organic operations that, there's a convenience factor there of wanting to continue to plant, a Pioneer or a Legend or whatever the supplier is. But yeah, it's definitely at a point now where, genetics are absolutely on par. And I don't think I'm just speaking sales speak. It's
I don't think you are either.
Really, the data has really borne that out,
Yes.
And anyone could look at that and it'd be a good place to start, at least, if you're thinking about making the switch to using more organic seed.
Absolutely. And I think it's a fair concern. And as an inspector and a consultant, seeing really incredible yields from organic seed on organic farms is the proof that those genetics are really being well taken care of and developed conscientiously. So you mentioned a thing I'd like to dive in a little bit more on, and that is when considering what constraints and what benefits organic farmers experience when growing organically, there is a difference in developing seed that's going to thrive with slow releasing nutrients in higher organic matter soils that don't have the same care package that conventionally developed and conventionally raised seeds get. So could you speak a little bit to how, when we think the long game with organics and organic seed, how Albert Lee and generally the organic seed space in general, the folks working in that space are thinking about building and producing seeds that really do maximize that organic production system and that are developed for organic producers rather than just being conventional seeds that are put into an organic system?
Yeah, it's a great question. And, one that we definitely think about, I often think of and I think anybody that works in the organic space can kind of attest to this, that the organic agriculture space is so much more interconnected and interdependent, than the conventional agriculture space, in that, there's very easily definable ripple effects, whether it's from, reinvestment in rural communities or, allowing smaller sized operations to operate and still clear their budgets, or, money circulating more within the community, that really does, set organic agriculture apart. And I would also include seed in that equation too. So, I mean, there's something to be said about investing more dollars and resources in, the organic seed infrastructure, because those folks that work, breeders, distributors, et cetera, have organic farmers top of mind when, thinking about breeding for organic farmers, selecting traits for organic farmers, so that money and those resources really pay back double to the organic community writ large. Whereas, a Pioneer or a Corteva, they might supply conventional untreated seed, but if serving organic farmers is not part of their mission, organic farming is more or less kind of a blip on their radar in comparison. So it's definitely an important distinction there. I would say long term, if we're just talking about, a crop like corn, obviously the goal would be to do more concerted breeding work on certified organic ground. And also, building the capacity to do, replicated yield trials and research across the nation on certified organic land. Now that does add a lot of complexity to, breeding work, and, the whole nature of selection work is to minimize variation and variables to kind of arrive at a hybrid that is going to be meeting the needs of organic farmers. But it's definitely long-term, that's absolutely, a goal of ours, and something we certainly invest a lot of money in. I would say, like, all of the, kind of the normal protocols that, a conventional seed company goes through, we're doing the same, with the understanding that we're building the network and the framework of, breeding hybrids, selecting traits that are going to be advantageous for certified organic farmers. So there's that piece, but there's also, a definite need to invest a whole lot of money in the breeding infrastructure, because a lot of, when you're talking about crops like corn specifically, all of that breeding and development work has all been, it's essentially owned by private entities, whereas once upon a time that was a public resource from, publicly bred universities, et cetera. And that definitely still exists with things like small grains, soybeans, cover crops. There are breeding programs that are, alive and well in that space, but there's a definite need to reinvest in public plant breeding to make those, they could potentially be more responsive to a market like organic versus the conventional ag space.
Absolutely agree. For folks on the line, if you have questions for Matt, please go ahead and drop them in the chat. We'll take them as they come, and excited for the robust discussion. So Matt, you had mentioned an interesting segue from breeding and the efforts to breed specifically for organics, and kind of the byproduct of that being that certified organic farmers are going to be the ones raising this certified organic seed, and all of the benefits that come with that. When we think about how much organic seed could be being planted in the States, even if we think just in kind of the more row crop, field crop space, corn, soy, wheat, it just seems like there is a lot of money being left on the table that could be going to certified organic farmers who are raising out this seed. So could you speak a little bit to how Albert Lea goes about contracting? So you guys raise organic seed, and my understanding is you contract with farmers to grow out that certified seed, to then clean out and go into your sales channels. So could you speak a little bit to how that contracting flows and what opportunities might be out there as we look to scale the production of organic seed in the States?
Yeah, you're right. Unlike some other seed entities, we don't own our own farmland, so all the seed that we grow is contracted with certified organic farmers. And there's definitely a regionality to growing organic seed. Like any other seed crops. I mean, some crops do better in certain regions of the country than others. So we're not going to try to raise field peas, for example, in Illinois if that's not the right environment for it. So yeah, in the upper Midwest, we're contracting with certified organic farmers for small grains and soybeans and corn. Although corn is a little bit more specific in that it's much more resource intensive, and there's kind of more levels of support there to kind of to produce that particular crop. As you go farther west, there's certified organic crop seed grown of grasses and clovers, kind of in the dry montane states, alfalfa, and going farther west as well under irrigation. So, and a lot of the folks we're very fortunate to have long-standing relationships with. So many of the seed growers that we work with have been raising seed for us for 30 plus years, and we really value those relationships because it's not only is it's a challenge to be a certified organic farmer, even in the best years. And it's a challenge to raise high quality seed. And those two skill sets aren't always complementary. There is an additional labor ask when we're working with farmers to raise seed. They have to keep things separate. They have to clean out their combine. They have to make sure all the quality specs are there all along the line. So it does take extra work on their end. But yeah, feel very fortunate to have a strong network of organic seed growers for many years. But yes, absolutely. I mean, as of right now, I can't remember the specific numbers off the top of my head, but Organic Seed Alliance did a study of how much organic seed is actually being used, and it's not as much as we would like. I think that's kind of the top line story.
Yeah.
And for certainly for certain operations like vegetables, which I don't have as much experience with, there's probably more legitimate concerns about accessing varieties available in certified organic, for their particular operations. But for field crops, I think it's safe to say that there's less of a reason for people not to be using organic seed, and certainly on the regulatory standpoint, that allowance for using conventional seed is going to be tightened down as time goes on. To what extent, I don't think I really know. I'm sure, Nate, you could comment on that more.
Well, yeah, we'll definitely talk about the regulatory side a bit. I wanted to circle back just a little on I raised certified organic yellow pea seed, not the field behind me, but the field before that. And it was I had a lot of suppositions going into organic, mostly from what I've heard from my fellow producers, that it's just impossible to raise good certified organic certified seed, because you can't get good enough weed control. There's going to be basically the hygiene of the field is going to be not up to par to qualify for certified seed. And I personally found that it was actually, if we've got a good crop rotation where you've got some amount of a clean out crop like alfalfa or another legume, that's going to allow you to mine off that seed bank and have overall good control. It was just a wonderful addition to my marketing channel. So I raised feed grade and food grade and now seed grains and pulses. And it seemed like it was an opportunity to tap a market that is just so much more stable. Feed is whiplash. It's as close to a regular commodity as we get, widely traded, lots of different price data points informing the market price that you get when you sell. Food grade is a little more stable because you're going to have lots of times a more direct relationship with a premium buyer. But seed seemed like the most stable because we always know that there's going to be demand for it that next year. And there's also quite a bit of working relationship between the seed house putting forth specs, providing that registered seed from which we grow the certified seed. And I thought it was just, a relief to find such a market. So in thinking about, Matt, kind of the potential, or if folks were interested in thinking about growing seed, what would you say they should consider if they were to get in touch with you guys or think about growing seed with another outfit?
Yeah, and I would say, across the board, it does provide another value-added marketing channel for folks. And we're all about farmers raising their own seed, saving their own seed. I think that's great. And it's not offensive to us in the seed industry at all. I think as Mac's dad, George would say, anybody wants to raise seed, jump on in. It definitely is, depending on what crop you're raising, like Nate was talking about the certified seed channel, which is actually raising seed to have identity preserved blue tag on it. They're, depending on what level of seed you're raising, there can be higher barriers to entry. And there also is some, legal landscape that you need to be aware of too when you're raising seed. Is it, number one being, is the variety you're hoping to save for seed legal to reproduce and sell? That's number one. Number two, is it legal to harvest and save for your own use? And a lot of times it is, and sometimes it isn't. So it's definitely one of those markets you need to do your investigation on and make sure that, whatever seed crop you're raising is going to, not get you in trouble with state departments of ag or, federal regulators. But in general, I would say the lowest bar to entry to raising seed would be to start raising your own cover crop seed. We've definitely worked with quite a few folks that have started doing that already. If you have the infrastructure set up to do that, raising things like winter rye, oats for cover crop, as long as the variety is not a protected variety, or, other things like that, could potentially add some value, can really be a nice addition to your overall farm income. And it can be something you could either just raise for your own use or, sell locally. But it does require a little, if you really want to scale up and get involved with it, it does require, cleaning, processing, storing infrastructure, which isn't, a huge lift, but definitely something that can happen if one is interested. Now, the certified is kind of a different pathway a little bit. So, that is something like your example with the field peas, raising in essence double certified seeds. So certified organic and certified blue tag peas is kind of, there's a whole other set of steps that have to go along with that to be in compliance with, legal architecture, but definitely can be done as well. It's something that we do quite frequently with raising both small grains and soybeans to be, in essence, double certified.
Yeah, which was I thought one of the most exciting things to see that product, that certified is possible and can be done fairly easily. Touching on the infrastructure that you think and have seen necessary to get into the seed growing business on the farm side, how would you describe the cleaning and the other infrastructure considerations if someone was looking to get into raising certified organic seed?
Yeah, in general, it would be, making sure you have, storage would probably be a big one. Because, if you're going to be getting into the seed space, you may not sell all of your seed that you have available in one given season. So having storage, making sure you have the equipment to handle and clean equipment, whether it's fanning mills, gravity tables, all that. You don't necessarily have to be totally machined up in a way that, you don't have to run your own seed cleaning plant necessarily, but it definitely helps. And anything you can do to, make the seed as clean as possible going into the bin is going to help you a lot in the long run. And some people have even figured out how to do that with fairly limited infrastructure, just augering grain in between bins and, essentially fanning out all the light stuff, all of the weed seeds, there's a lot of room for creativity with, kind of farmer innovators to set that up and make that viable. I would also say too that, outside of seed companies like ours, there's really not a whole lot of kind of independent seed cleaning and contract cleaning outfits out there. So, I would think that would be another potential avenue for enterprising folks to really make another viable business on the side, because cleaning your own seed is definitely desirable for a lot of folks, but they may not have the infrastructure, they may not have the equipment, and it's expensive, and there's a lot of equipment available on the secondhand market, but whether it's in good shape or not is kind of another question. But that's definitely something we're seeing a lot of interest in, is even people being as savvy as putting it on a semi trailer and being able to drive it around, so it's not a static building. They can go drive out to another farm field and clean a couple bins worth of seed for folks. So definitely opportunities there. But really for cleaning high quality seed, it depends on what level you want to get into it. And how important of a market it is for your overall outlay, but you really don't have to be that resource intensive to start, jumping into raising your own seed on your own farm.
So one of the seeds you mentioned that I think I've heard a lot of folks raising is rye, and particularly during the organic transition, where we try to figure out how to not mine off too many nutrients in preparation of being able to get more value from those nutrients when we're certified organic. What do you think about when you hear folks raising their own rye, or what tips would you have for how to think about doing that as best as folks can?
Number one would be to just make sure whatever rye you're raising is not a protected variety, so legally available to save and replant and sell. And for a crop like rye, that's 9 times out of 10 going to be the case. The vast majority of winter rye sold for cover crop is all either variety not stated or rye varieties from Canada that don't have protection in the US. So it's a pretty easy bar to make there. But starting with clean seed would be pretty important. So making sure that you're not, right off the bat introducing prohibited weeds or problematic weeds to your farm. It's a really easy crop. It doesn't require a lot of management, doesn't require a lot of fertility, yields decently on pretty variable soils. So there's not a lot of, nutrient or management asks there. The big thing after starting with clean seed and assuming, you're not dealing with some tough to control weeds on your own farm would just be to make sure it's nice and clean going into the bin. So harvesting it at the appropriate moisture, for a lot of small grains, that would be 12% or under. So you're not having spoilage in the bin. Making sure you're, storing it in a bin with a false floor with air, so you can keep, air going through it. Even periodically, if you're going to be storing a big bin full of rye, is, augering it out and cleaning it out and kind of inverting it at some point if you're going to be storing it for a long time. Because a crop like rye, eventually, if it's not stored appropriately, the germination can fall off after about a year. But it's all, kind of quality and storage dependent. So if it's at the right storage moisture and there's not a lot of, weeds and FM and other things in there, you can store it and keep it in pretty good condition for a while, keeping bugs out of there too. So making sure your bins are kind of buttoned up and they don't have holes for, insects or rodents. That's kind of another avenue for spoilage.
Really just
so yeah,
good storage practices, just like we would expect with food grade.
Absolutely. Yep.
And the germination, the drier we put it into the bin, the better, as far as keeping that germination number up. Would you say that's correct?
Yeah, mostly. Yep.
All right.
I mean, there is such a thing as, having things too dry. Usually not the case, that people are putting grain in a bin at 8% or 7% or something like that. So it's, mainly just conditioning and storage. That's the most important to keep, because that directly relates to germination and quality at the back end too. So, and, obviously if you really want to get into it and start selling to farmers, I'm sure that, they're going to start asking questions about, what's the germination and when was the crop grown? And, so having the capacity to take samples and get, testing done as well is probably going to be important for anybody looking to get into that space.
Yeah. And that can usually be done with your local land grant university for getting that germ test done, or other agronomy outfits.
Yep. Absolutely.
As you look at the, I think if I were to sum up the qualities of a good seed grower, it seems like you should be good at growing the crop itself for, say, food grade, and be able to have good weed management, good overall agronomy technique before diving into seed. I think that I'd be interested in your take on what crops, other than your more traditional ones like corn, beans, wheat, what crops do you see as being on the future of expansion for seed, and possibly that folks should think about learning how to grow in case they might want to one day grow it for seed?
Yeah, good question. I mean, I would imagine it would probably follow kind of the growth and expansion in the organic grain and oilseed space domestically. So, I mean, I think we've all seen that, reliance on export markets to satisfy our own domestic use is not as necessarily as stable as it once was. Whether from war or, certification issues, that relying on, export markets may not be a good solution for us moving forward. So it seems like, at least even in the short term, there's opportunities to raise things like organic sunflower, or, organic peas. There's a huge developing demand for peas for both animal feed and for, meat substitute type products, which seems pretty exciting. I think there's a lot of potential there too. And this is probably my bias because I happen to love fields of small grains, but I do feel like there's a lot of potential to capture more value in an organic rotation from small grains, and, things like hybrid winter rye, winter barley, things that can really diversify an organic rotation and make money in that third crop year or fourth crop year, whatever the case may be, is really exciting and definitely something that could be, a big diversified moneymaker for organic farmers moving forward. So yeah, I can't really say. I mean, we're, as a seed company ourselves, we're pretty highly diversified. I think every year our catalog grows by 5 to 10 pages or something, because we're always adding on new species and, kind of trying to think of what organic farmers need and want. But I really do feel like, there's a lot of potential even for things like ancient grains as well. I mean, admittedly, it's a pretty small market. But, there's not a lot of seed available of things like einkorn and emmer and, heritage varieties, things like that, that if you're savvy and, you have good connections, you could create a pretty nice niche market to, bakers, millers, distillers, things like that. Because, those types of entities are always looking for ways to differentiate themselves in the marketplace as well. So there's a lot of potential there as well that, that will hopefully yield benefits to organic folks moving forward.
Absolutely. For folks on the call, I'd be interested if you have any questions for Matt, or any questions about seed growing in general. I think of this as a really awesome and an underdeveloped potential market for organic growers, and something we think about a lot. Matt, when we look at cover crop seed, I know that I oftentimes make a lot of decisions on price for cover crop seed, because it can be quite spendy, depending on the different cocktail that you're looking to put into your field. What are there any special considerations for folks looking to get into growing their own cover crop seed, or looking to grow these more niche crops that are part of usually a greater cocktail for multi-species cover crop mixes?
I guess I would mainly, kind of start with, our whatever crop species you're hoping to raise, is it viable to raise that particular crop and do it in a quality way where you farm. So, it might be really great to think about raising, a field of tillage radish or something like that, so you don't have to pay, $3 to $4 a pound for organic radish. It sounds good in theory, but, maybe your particular farm is not in a latitude or longitude that's conducive to raising that particular crop, or, so that would kind of be the place to start. Is it economically viable to raise whatever crop you're hoping to produce in your particular area? Do you have the equipment to handle it and to harvest it? I mean, I think once you get outside of the normal, corn, soybeans, small grains, crops, some of the handling and post-harvest storage and stuff becomes a little more challenging, not insurmountable by any means, but it's definitely something you need to, go into with your eyes open before you just plant a crop, and also finding a market for it too, I would say. It's going to be really advantageous to do your research and make sure that, you at least have a sense of where you're going to be selling this. So you're not ending up with a bin of, crop X that, is hard to move because you don't have a market for it. So yeah, I mean, like I mentioned earlier, winter rye is a great place to start. Pretty easy to get into. Oats would be another one. Specialty cover crop legumes like like speckled forage peas or hairy vetch. That's one crop in particular that we are usually always looking for in a cover crop standpoint, because it kind of adds another layer of complexity to the farm rotation. But I mean, in essence, it can be grown right along with a crop like rye. In fact, they're more often than not grown together, harvested together, sold together. So that would be definitely kind of low hanging fruit. So those larger seeded legumes would kind of be the next stage at, ease of raising to give somebody a potential crop there. Once you start getting into the brassicas, like a radish or a turnip, things like that, it'd be a little bit more challenging. There are folks that do raise, radishes, for example, in the upper Midwest. It can be done, but a lot of that seed and infrastructure is all coming from, Oregon and Washington, because they have a really good climate for raising that. And, a lot of the infrastructure is there. So not to say that just because you're not in a region like that you can't do it, but, there's other factors to consider if you want to get started with particular crops like that.
We had a note from Michael O'Donnell reminding everyone that no one wants volunteer vetch in their rotations. So as with everything, we want to consider, how do we make sure nothing becomes a volunteer weed when we're introducing it? But yeah, I
absolutely.
think that there's so much potential there.
Another one that I forgot to mention was buckwheat. That's
sure.
often a great, crop to be planted. It's kind of has an odd place in a crop rotation. It's planted in the summer and harvested in the summer, but it can be a great kind of catch crop or an area to clean up problem weed fields. Comes out pretty quick and it grows super vigorously too. Now, same watch out that Michael just chimed in with, buckwheat can become a volunteer weed pretty easily, but another crop that could be a pretty easy inroad into raising your own cover crop seed as well.
Absolutely. When we were talking about the infrastructure, one shout out I wanted to give was when I worked with you guys, didn't have my own seed cleaning facility, so partnered with a certified organic seed cleaning facility a couple hours from my farm. And so just, like you said, that ripple effect, spreading the love. And that provided a custom cleaning opportunity for that seed house to clean my yellow peas that I was then sending out to you guys. So if there's always room for partnerships, it seems like, as we consider what infrastructure is necessary. Not everyone needs to have their own seed house to make this work. We started this conversation, Matt, with the regulation that organic farmers need to use certified organic seed. And I wanted to reemphasize that to everyone, because if you are able to become an organic seed grower or partner with an organic seed house like Albert Lea, the law requires that if you're producing seed in a quality, quantity, and form, so that you're producing the right varieties that have the right characteristics, and you're selling it in a quantity that's reasonable for a field crop grower to use it. So we're not selling it in 4-ounce bags, but selling it, by the tote sack or the 50-pound bag. Organic farmers are required to buy it. And I think that's a really somewhat under-celebrated aspect of the regulations, that if you put and invest in growing certified organic seed and make that seed known to the area, and you're growing the quality, quantity, and form, there is no price consideration that it's the expectation that organic seed would command a premium. And I don't know if you have anything to add to that, Matt, but it seems like I'm always surprised that there's not more folks jumping into growing organic seed for that very reason, that there's sort of in a way, a committed market.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think, it does boil down to, folks having a comfort level with their existing channels and things like that. And you're absolutely right. There's no requirement for price as far as that goes, to access, organic seed versus conventional untreated. But yeah, I mean, I think across the board, there does seem to be a lot of variability in what certification agencies require of folks to, so that's really the open question in my mind is, to what extent. Obviously no organic farmer wants more paperwork and regulation. I think, it's safe to say that their cups are full as far as that goes. But, for all the other issues that we mentioned about, how much buying organic seed reinvests into the organic seed space, over the long haul. And that would especially be true buying from another, organic farmer that's raising his or her own seed. There's a lot of room there to improve that. Whether that's making organic seed more visible in the marketplace, requiring folks to really look for that, even though they already do to some extent. But it seems like there's kind of inconsistencies in how much requirement there is in that space. But yeah, definitely something that could be emphasized moving forward. Let's just put it that way.
So for folks really interested in trying to get their hands on organic seed, making a good concerted effort to comply with the standards, how do you think about the perfect organic seed search? How should folks go about doing that? I think there's a number of instances I've seen where folks just end up asking their existing seed dealers who are not in the organic business, and that seed dealer basically dismisses that there isn't any organic seed left for multiple reasons, obviously. And so what would you say is the best tact for discovering what organic seed is out there and how to get your hands on it?
Yeah, it's not always an easy proposition. It seems like it should be, but yeah, it does require, it kind of presupposes that somebody is connected to the organic, agriculture space to begin with, that they kind of know who the bigger players and suppliers are. But I mean, I've even personally been surprised to learn about, entity X that's out there that's supplying crops, A, B, and C, that I wasn't aware of. So sure. There's been various efforts, over the past, 5 or 6 years from groups like the American Seed Trade Association, Organic Seed Alliance, and others that have tried to create kind of a more usable database of organic seeds. So both, certifiers and farmers could go to look and see if they're looking for a variety. I think those efforts have not really panned out the way people have hoped. Mainly it just boils down to, is it used or not? And I think the answer is no. So if it's not used, it's not used. But yeah, for folks new to the community, it's probably a little bit more of an exploratory investigation stage. I would say encouraging organic farmers to get connected with their kind of local organic community, whether that's through attending field days, going to conferences. There's a ton of great avenues to get connected with the organic seed space. How to do the follow through? I think, like I said, there is plenty of organic seed out there in any given year. A lot of it does depend on, to what extent certifiers are a part of that conversation and are aware themselves, are aware of maybe what crops there are to be planted. So there's a lot of room there to build the awareness, I think, of the certification apparatus to make, to educate them about, what crops would farmers be planting in rotation, what crops are available to be sourced organically, which aren't, because there definitely are some crops that, folks want to plant that aren't available in organic. So yeah, a lot of room for education. And my long-term hope is that, groups like OATS are able to help bridge that gap and to build the capacity for certification agencies, extension agents, NRCS folks to really make them aware of what the resources are and how to plug them into the community.
Absolutely. Any other questions from anyone in the audience? Well, really appreciate your time joining us today, Matt. This was great. I think it's an exciting potential market for a lot of growers, an exciting concept to be breeding seed that is really appropriate and a good fit for organic field conditions. And I think that the work that you all are doing and all the farmers and advisors on this call are doing are working towards that end goal. So really appreciate you joining us today and sharing all this information with us, Matt.
Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity and the conversation.
Absolutely. Thank you. And thanks for your daughter sticking it out with us. It's early in the morning, so we appreciate you making the time, and I hope you're staying warm out there.
Yeah, same to you all.
Thank you. In closing, folks, we are going to have another one of these next month, so watch out for the link. We're going to be talking to Mike Schulist of National Farmers Organics about marketing organic grains and organic crops cooperatively. As a reminder, the organic field crop course has launched. And if you're interested in getting your team trained or learning more about organic agronomy yourself, possibly adding organic agronomy advising to your business portfolio, this course is an awesome opportunity to really get a ground truth intro to best practices for making viable and successful organic operations. We hope you'll join us again and really appreciate everyone's work out there. Hope fall is wrapping up well as we enter into winter. We've got a couple of feet of snow on the ground here in Montana, which is always exciting for us. So we hope things are looking good wherever you are. All right, take care until next month, everyone, and we'll see you then.